Hey there. Hi, hello, how are you? This is episode 4 of Random Ass Missy. Here we are, brand new day. And my hair is herring, and I'm not sad about it at all. Like, damn girl, damn. Anyways, hi. So somehow I'm already on to episode 4, and I'm not quite sure how that happened, but here it is. Today let's talk about something that is probably going to trigger some people. So I'm going to put up a trigger warning now. Like, here's my trigger warning. Um, I was hit by a pickup truck as a kid. So if that is not something you want to hear about, then you should go. And I'm sending you love. That's cool. You don't have to be here for this. For the rest of you, back in 1999, I was 13 years old. It's December. It is December 2nd, 1999. School had just gotten out. The school that I went to, the middle school and the high school, were like conjoined buildings, and we shared like a gym and the art room and that kind of stuff. But then the elementary school was like 4 blocks in the other direction, and so a big group of friends and I were going down to the elementary school because we had practice for the school musical, the middle school musical. Like, it was just middle school aged children. Puh, let me spit that out. So like 5th through 7th graders, and I happened to be an 8th grader, but they just let me in anyway. Which I was very grateful for because I got one of the main parts. I was Golda in Fiddler on the Roof, and it was amazing. Which was hilarious because my husband in the play, Tevye, was played by someone who was a couple years younger than me. So he was like this tall. And so he's yelling up at me, "I'm the father!" And like everybody just died laughing. And somehow I kept a straight face for him like this up at me, and it was beautiful. Anyways, this is not about the play itself. This is about the traumatic event that happened before the play. So, the play is not for months, right? We are just starting practice. And so after school, we're walking as a group down from the middle school to the elementary school. The whole thing's a school zone. It's 25 miles an hour through the whole area. And you have to cross the intersection at like downtown where I'm from, which just is like a blinking red light. There's nothing else. There are buildings, obviously, but like there's no traffic light. It's just a blinking red light, four-way stop. So before you get to that four-way stop, you have to cross the Shiawassee River, which there's, a bridge, and we all spit over the bridge. Then we run across the bridge to the other side, and then we go to the gas station and get like snacks and stuff before we go down to the elementary school. So on this particular day, I went to go, I spit over the bridge for good luck. I don't know why, we just did. So I spit over the bridge for good luck, and then I'm going to run across the bridge, but there's buses coming, so I stop. Next thing I know, I hear my name from behind me. I look, and there is a truck coming directly at me. And I had looked both ways twice. Twice. The buses seemed way far off, and there was nobody at the intersection when I went to cross. Well, it turns out I'm just being told this, that he ran the stop sign and he was speeding, but they obviously didn't do anything about that because all of the witnesses were minors, including like the driver was 18 years old, and then there's a bus driver that was nearby when it happened, but everybody else was under 18. So they kind of like took everybody else's story with a grain of salt. Fine, whatever. So I look both ways twice. I step out, realize how close the buses are coming, and there's a bunch of people that are about to come with me. So I'm about to turn around and get back out of the street. I hear my name. Somebody grabs for the back of my leather jacket because I'm wearing a leather jacket. Thank goodness. I think the leather jacket probably saved my life. So I grab, I'm being grabbed at. I look, there's a truck coming. He's probably going 40. I don't know that for sure. Nobody ever confirmed that, but they were just saying the way he hit me and ran me over, he was going around 40 in a 25. And so I stop. I'm looking at him and everything just like pauses in my brain. I don't know why. This is just how it happened for me. So everything stops. And I remember looking up, and there's the area part of the blank area schools on the bus, and there are children looking down at me. And I'm like, if I turn to run, he's probably going to break my back because this was a Dodge Ram pickup truck. Like the hood was here. I'm an eighth grader, but also a tall eighth grader, so there's that. Um, so I think he's gonna hit me. So if I turn and run, this is probably gonna break my back. The front bumper is just gonna break my back. If I turn towards him, I think that's gonna be worse. I can't go this way because there's a bus right there driving by, and there's more buses behind them. So I just stand there and take it. And he hit the left side of me. Um, he hit me, and I'm out before I hit the ground. This is the only time that I can recall passing out in my entire life was when, before I hit the ground, which I'm very thankful that I did because he also ran me over. I don't think he was paying attention, which I get that, like, whatever. I'm not blaming him for it. It's a thing that happened. I was in the road. He hit me. Fine. So I come to so this is super weird and you can believe whatever you want to believe, but I was like swimming in darkness, right? So I'm swimming in darkness and I can hear, you know how when you're underwater and somebody calls your name, you can kind of hear it, but it's super distorted. That's what this was like. I could hear people calling my name, but it was super distorted, like I was underwater. And so I'm swimming, I'm swimming, I'm swimming. And then suddenly I'm awake again. And I am like, oh my God, guys, we got to get out of the road. And they're like, you need to stay right where you are. And I'm like, no, we need to get out of the road. What if another car comes? Like, we need to get out of the road. All of you guys get out of the road because obviously there's a group of people standing around me, and I'm like, everybody needs to get out of the road. Well, adrenaline is doing its thing, and I don't realize that, like, I ain't doing so hot. Nothing hurts yet because there's that much adrenaline. And so I'm like, guys, everybody needs to get out of the road. And I am like trying to get up to get out of the road. And somebody bodily had to put a hand on my chest, like, you need to stay right the fuck there. So I don't remember him being with us, but he obviously was because he went, uh, our like star runner that was in my class, like took off towards the town ambulance. We still had a town ambulance at that point. At some point there wasn't one anymore. But he takes off. It's only a couple of blocks. So he's gone. Poof, gone. He takes off towards the ambulance. And none of us have cell phones because it's 1999. Nobody has a cell phone. None. Which is fine because at that point we didn't need them, right? So the kid takes off towards the ambulance garage, and we're all like in the street, and it's kind of fuzzy here and there, obviously, because I'm on the ground. And there are people bodily keeping me on the ground while I'm yelling about everybody getting out of the road. And then the ambulance didn't take long. It shows up, and the guy looks like he sees a ghost. What I didn't know yet is my 4 front teeth are missing. These are not real. These 4 are not real. It's a partial that gets held in with a piece of metal in my mouth. And there's a piece of jaw missing too. You can't really see it, but there's a little scar right here, and that's actually where my jaw went through my lip. And there's scarring along the inside of my nostrils too. I had road rash all across that side of my face, from being hit. Because, like I said, the hood of the truck was like right here. So I'm just like bleeding profusely, and I have no idea that I'm doing it. And so this poor EMT is like trying to ask me the questions, but also wondering how long I'm going to last. And that's kind of a theme for this whole like month right after this happens. I'm the only one who knows I'm going to live. And I didn't know that. Like, nobody tells the 13-year-old that, right? So I'm the only one who knows I'm going to live through this, whether I want to or not. Spoiler alert, I didn't want to, but I did anyway. Um, so this poor EMT is like, do you know where you are? Do you know what your name is? Do you know who the president is? And I'm like, I need you to call my mother. And I start rattling off her work phone number. And he's trying to ask me these questions. And I'm like, somebody needs to call my mother right now. And he's just trying to ask me these questions. And I knew all the answers to the questions. And I'm getting mad at him because I'm like, clearly, clearly you don't understand that I have all my faculties right now. I just need you to confirm that you've heard me, that I need you to call my mother. And so I'm just like over and over again. And he's like about to cut my combat boots off. And I said, do not, don't you dare. I can wiggle all my toes. My feet are fine. Do not cut my combat boots. I will be so hot to trot. He's like, fine, I'll cut the laces and take them off. I said, that's acceptable. Because I loved those boots. They had these stupid little pockets on them. Like, why did my boots have a pocket this big on the side? I don't know, but they did, and I loved them. Unfortunately, they cut off my leather jacket, but it wasn't in a good enough shape to keep after that anyway, and I'd find that out later. Um, I had this like vintage leather jacket. It was like a dark brown leather jacket that I found at a garage sale for like $10, and I wore the hell out of it, and I would still wear it today if I still had it. But yeah, it got fucked. It looked like a bear had like all claws down the back of it. It was all road rash, and I am so thankful that I had it on because I think that probably saved my life at least a little bit. Um, so the EMT is like, trying to, they get me loaded in the ambulance, obviously, and then he's trying to cut everything off. And that's when we fight about my boots. And he accommodated me and just cut the laces of my boots. But I ended up never wearing them again anyway. And I think my mom was hiding them from me because she didn't want me to keep anything I had been wearing that day, which is fine. I understand that that was also very traumatic for my parents. But at the time, I didn't think about that because I was just like, oh my God, I am in so much trouble right now. Like, what kind of headspace do you have to be in when you get hit by a vehicle as a pedestrian and you think, oh my God, I am in so much trouble with my parents right now? And it's not that they were scary people. That's not what this is. I was just in such a poor mindset that I thought I was going to be in so much trouble because somehow this was my fault. And realistically, it was half my fault. I was standing in the road, but I was also standing in a school zone and there wasn't anybody at the stop sign when I was, going out into the road. But it is half my fault. I do accept half the responsibility for this because I should not have been standing in the road in the first place, even in a school zone after school. I get that. So they get me in the ambulance and they're asking me all the questions to make sure I don't have a concussion. They're cutting all my clothing off of me. And they obviously didn't let anybody get in the ambulance with me, which is good. Like, don't let other children get in the ambulance with me. Like, that's probably not a good idea. So the kids, keep going along to the other school, obviously now traumatized, and rightly so. And I feel like maybe the bystanders were a little more traumatized than I was because I really wasn't all that traumatized. I was mad. I was really mad for a really long time about it. But yeah, I feel like watching someone get hit by a car is probably pretty traumatizing, especially when there's as much blood as there was. Because yeah, I was just like bleeding from the mouth. Um, and I like wasn't registering that at all whatsoever. So every time somebody looked at me like I was a ghost, I was confused because I didn't understand how bad I looked. And later on, it would kind of become apparent to me because they kept removing the mirror from the room I was in when they moved me from different rooms in the ICU because I started out in one room and then they moved me to another one and it was a whole thing. Anyways, so I'm like still trying to get them to call my mother at work and rattling off her work phone number like that's going to do something. Somebody called my mother at some point, and I think one of the EMTs actually did because they got my mom got to the hospital pretty quickly. And she wasn't allowed to see me right away because they were trying to like make sure I wasn't bleeding internally or anything. So they did a bunch of x-rays, they did CAT scans, they did a lot. Um, but but yeah, so like the whole thing is kind of surreal, like it happened to somebody else now because that was over 25 years ago. I don't know. I can't math. It was 1999 and now it's 2024. So there you go. um, so then, this none of it actually hurt that first day. I was blissfully full of adrenaline that first day, and nothing hurt that first day at all whatsoever. Not even like the road rash on my face, nothing. Like my whole system was just adrenaline. And I am very, very thankful for that because I was going to be in for a world of hurt later, but it wasn't that first day. So yeah, they do all these tests and they keep asking me questions. Um, and I guess something really random that stuck out to me while I was in the ambulance was they asked me which hospital I wanted to go to. Who asks a 13-year-old what hospital they want to go to? I don't know. But I picked the major hospital in Flint because Flint was really like the closest city to us, and that was about, I don't know, a 20-25 minute drive depending on how fast you're driving, and I'm sure the ambulance was driving a lot faster. I think it only took us 15 minutes to get there. I can do it in 15 minutes, but that's not legal. That's not legal. It's not. Cuz I when I was really little, we lived in a suburban area, and then we moved when I was in like 3rd grade, and we moved to the middle of nowhere. And my graduating class ended up being 86 children, if that tells you anything. Like it was a very, very, very small town. And there's just lots of cornfields, no cities anywhere near us. Like I said, the closest was Flint, and it was probably almost half an hour drive. Or Howell was south of us, which was also, almost a half an hour drive. So I had them take me to Flint, to the major hospital in Flint. Hurley took such good care of me. Like they have a children's ICU at Hurley, and they took such good care of me. I know it was 1999. I don't know what it's like now, but back then it was. The nurses were amazing. The doctors were amazing. My surgeon was amazing. Like I ended up having to have exploratory surgery, and I loved my surgeon. And it was just, for as awful as it must have been for my parents, like the hospital was so good to us. And unfortunately, the guy who hit me did not have insurance on his vehicle. So our insurance had to take care of everything. And my dad was part of, the local UAW. And our representative like made sure everything got covered, even if like it had to be juggled between our auto insurance and our health insurance because something weird happened. Like everything got covered. It was amazing. Anyways, so I'm at the hospital. They finally, get me to a room and let my parents in. And I was kind of a brat. Like, I won't lie to you, I was kind of a brat because I was just like thinking about how I wanted to be left alone. And like everybody is just like all up in my business. And I'm like, I just need everybody to get out of here and leave me alone because, like, up until this point, I'm an only child. I spend a lot of time by myself, a lot of time by myself. So suddenly having the absence of the time by myself and I'm trying to process feelings, I like being alone to process my feelings. I was taught it is not safe to have feelings in front of other people. So I am like trying to figure out what my body's doing, trying to figure out what my brain is doing, and there's just like people all up in my shit, and I'm like, I need everybody out of here. Well, luckily they did not leave me alone. Um, Leaving me alone would have been a really bad idea, and I'm glad that they didn't. I won't lie to you about that. Leaving me alone would have been a very bad idea. I was only left alone like once the entire month I was in the hospital. And I was actively looking for sharp objects while I was left alone. And I didn't do anything about it, but I was actively looking for sharp objects when I was left alone. Anyways, so what actually ended up happening, he hit me, he ran me over. Um, and so that piece of my upper jaw was missing. There's 4 teeth missing. I had a lacerated spleen and a perforation in my bowel. There was a hole in my large intestine. I had a partially collapsed lung. And they didn't know all of that at first. At first, they were just like, okay, we're going to keep an eye on the lung. Everything's fine. I don't think it was collapsed right away. I think it was just bruised really badly right away. I'm not sure. They don't, you know, again, they didn't tell the 13-year-old everything because, duh, I was 13. But I was also really mad about it because I could cognitively function like an adult. It's just, I only overheard things. So at first, they don't know what's going on. They didn't know that I had the perforation in my large intestine because it was so small that they didn't see it, on the CAT scans and the x-rays and all of that, whatever. But then I start swelling. It's not immediately, it's like a week or more into my hospital stay that I start swelling badly. And they don't quite know why. So and maybe I started swelling before that, but I don't know. It must have been like a week and a half before they scheduled me for this exploratory surgery. So I don't know what was going on that I was hospitalized that long. They didn't tell me. There was a lot of pain medication involved. And I think the problem with pain medication at that point was I didn't understand how pain medication worked. I thought it was supposed to make pain go away, not you're in so much pain that you can't make it go away. You can just make sure that you don't give a shit that you're in pain. Like when you're in that immense amount of pain, all you can really do is make you loopy as hell so you don't care that you're in pain. So I kept telling them, hey, I am still in pain. And so they would give me more drugs. And I was like, I am still in a lot of pain. And so more drugs happened. And so I spent a lot of that month in the hospital not quite knowing what was going on at all times, unless it was nighttime. In nighttime, I was perfectly coherent and awake, like wide awake. So one of my parents was there. They took turns sleeping in my hospital room with me. Um, and I was just coherent at night. And all day long, I was loopy as shit, trying to sleep. They kept waking me up. They're like, you can't sleep. I'm like, well, I'm not sleeping at night, so I'm going to sleep during the day. And they're like, no, you need to be awake during the day and sleep at night. I'm like, well, that's not what's happening here. I'm a preteen. What do you really want from me? I was kind of a night owl at that point anyway, but like, yeah, I was catching an hour or two at night, and then the rest of the sleeping I was doing was basically during the day, or I was like just in this catatonic state because I was sleep deprived. I was doped up on all kinds of drugs, and now swelling in the abdomen pretty badly. So they scheduled me for this exploratory surgery. I've never had surgery before in my life. I've never stayed in the hospital before. This is the first time I'm staying in a hospital. I had just been to the ER and discharged the same day before that. So they open me up, they find the perforation in my large intestine and they clean it up, but they have to pull all of your intestines out to do it because I'm full of gangrene at this point. It's been leaking into my abdominal cavity and there's gangrene and it's really bad. It's really bad. I don't think it got into my bloodstream, but it's bad. I'd had a fever, obviously. I was, experiencing symptoms of the infection. They just didn't know where it was. So they pull out my intestines, they clean them up, they fix the perforation, they put all my intestines back in. My spleen was okay. They didn't have to remove it or anything. So they just made sure that everything was okay visibly. and then they sewed me back up. So I have a ridiculous scar. And if you do not want to see it, this is time for you to go. I know, still all these years later, I have this scar. So I have this scar that goes from right here and it goes all the way down to just above my pubic bone and it bisects everything. It used to be an angry purple. Now it's mostly skin colored, but it used to be a very angry purple. I also have drain hole scars that look like gunshot wounds. Great. So yeah, I have three uh, drain scars, and then I've got, the big one. And there are scars on my knees because when he went over the top of me, it burned like all of the stuff up underneath, the exhaust burned my knees, and it was just like, I was a mess. I was definitely a mess. And now I understand why I was the only one who knew I was going to survive because I was just a mess. And so they fed me with a feeding tube after surgery for a couple of weeks, and I lost 40 pounds. Um, oh, lighting, you're suddenly going to change? Okay, cool. So yeah, I'm going to wrap this all up because we're getting to 26 minutes here and I don't want to ramble for this for much longer. So yeah, I spent a month at the hospital and then I think it was 28 days, but I spent, all of December in the hospital. I spent Christmas in the hospital. They sent me home right before New Year's, so I got to, do New Year's at home for Y2K. And then I was off of school for a couple more months, I think, and I didn't do any of my homework that was sent home to me at all whatsoever, and nobody cared. And I passed the eighth grade. I don't know how I passed the eighth grade. They should not have passed me because then I didn't do a damn thing through high school and I didn't have to and still passed everything with C's because C's get degrees, right? And I guess I didn't know that you needed good grades to get scholarships into college because my dad didn't go to college. My mom had like a little bit of community college, but it had been years and years before. So nobody could really tell me anything about college. Our guidance counselor really wasn't a whole lot of help. But I think at that point they had written me off because I had already gotten through the rest of eighth grade doing nothing. And then my freshman year, I did nothing and still passed my classes. And so, yeah, my high school career was just kind of shot because they just kept passing me when they probably shouldn't have. And I barely applied myself in anything and still got good grades, mostly good grades, because I kind of knew everything they were teaching, which, yes, I was the know it all. I really was. I read books. Shocker. And then I could suddenly look things up on the internet, which was a trip. I didn't have to go find an encyclopedia or go to the library. I could just, like find somebody who had home internet, or, once I was a junior, we had home internet and I could just Google anything I wanted. And I was like, well, this is cool. So then I was an even bigger know it all. Anyways, that was my traumatic story as a child getting hit by a truck. And it totally feels like it happened to somebody else. But I'm sure it traumatized the hell out of my parents. um, and I'm sure there's probably some trauma from it deep in there somewhere, but like it doesn't bother me. It stopped bothering me a really long time ago that like this thing happened to me because there was a point in time where I was like, why did this have to happen to me? I still don't know why it happened to me. It changed my personality, that's for sure. I had a chip on my shoulder after that for a while, like, well, this really fucking awful thing happened to me, so I'm gonna make it everybody else's problem. And I was kind of an asshole as a teenager. I think I was going to be an asshole as a teenager anyway. I think it just kind of like happened sooner because this happened to me. Um because, I was a shitty heavy metal teenager and I drove too fast and everybody could fuck themselves and I was kind of an asshole. we played the don't ask, don't tell game a lot at home. Like if they didn't ask, I wasn't gonna tell, and so I just did my thing, and I had a job, and I came home sometimes. I spent a lot of time at my best friend's house, uh, and I spent a lot of time just like roaming, doing my own thing. Anyways, we have made it to the 30-minute mark, and if you are still here, thank you so much for watching. I am so sorry. We had a really weird topic today, but I feel like it's got to be talked about at some point. So there it is. If you have weird questions, hit me up. Let me know. We'll talk about it. Thank you so much, and I will talk to you later. Bye.